with as much nuance and as much um, care and respect as I can for this subject. Um, so please take what I say with um, with grace. And I'm doing more research as I go, but I had to at least um, I had to talk about this today. I had a conversation with somebody earlier, and I didn't like what they said. It rubbed me the wrong way, and it felt too familiar for me. Um, so one thing that I think, especially us as Americans, that we really need to unpack is is our approach to discussion about subjects that are sensitive and what actually matters in the conversation. Like too often, as somebody who truly has to if for somebody who understands what living your life on eggshells looks like, um, and there are people of that look many different ways that understand this. But as a person who understands what walking on eggshells and talking on eggshells looks like for your entire life, um, it's difficult when people talk to you about. So let me just basically get into the meat and potatoes of it. So what was happening was I was talking about how I was upset that and I wish peace on both groups of people. I really do wish peace on both groups of people. Um and love and hope on both groups of people. Um but when I heard this person talk about this, I heard this sense of unrelenting and unjustified patriotism. It's scary to hear because we're talking about how I was upset that the approach that was being taken to dealing with the Hamas incident at that concert, which is horrible and terrible, about what happened to those people and those people that are currently hostages. But I was saying how terrible that was. But the approach that's being taken to deal with the Israeli people, the Israeli military, the approach that they're taking to deal with it is very it's very it would be similar to something happening to a member of the Hulk's family and him walking down the street, destroying everything in his path and not being thoughtful about where he's going to get the vengeance he's seeking for the people that were wronged in his life that were important to him. So in this indiscriminate attacks and these indiscriminate countermeasures, um, it's I'm surprised that it's not that us as Americans, I'm not surprised that we're not hearing what we need to hear about this. Um, but then again, that's information that can't be shared because technically it would be military tactics. But I'm surprised not getting more of a. I expected a more strategic and a more ready response um, from Israel. But often we don't really hear the full scope of something stuff that happens in the Middle East. So honestly, this could have been going on for a long time. Similar things to this could be going on for a long time, and none of us have known about it until recently and just now. And now we're kind of invested into it emotionally and on a social level, and social media is on fire about all of this. But when you approach it with this programmed mindset that sometimes us Americans have, um, is that well they need to get out of that country because Israel is because this is how the conversation kind of went. They need to get out of that country, um, because Israel gave them chances to get out and to leave. Where are they gonna go? Where are they gonna go? Because of the people in Gaza live, and I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but us in America, um, but I hope I pronounced. Please forgive me if I mispronounced it. But we would call it Gaza here. But people in Gaza, if I don't know if y'all understand, but like Israel is like, think of it this way, shape wise, and like where Israel and Gaza are. So if like Israel is the United States, or at least like one half of the United States, including Texas, Gaza is Texas. So like anything, any help, any resources, any aid to civilians that are not responsible for the terrorist attacks that took place um, at Israeli events. Any aid that's not able to get to those people is hindered by the Israeli government. So civilians that are being basically held accountable or held responsible for what terrorist organizations are doing where they live at, it's not right. It's not right. And we can't, us as Americans, we put on these blinders. All too often, we put on these blinders where we only see what's in front of us and we have tunnel vision. But there are a lot of people, especially in the Jewish community, that are thoughtful about this, and they're just like, And I can't, me personally, not being a person who is Jewish, like saying that lacks the credibility of it. But there's so many people in the Jewish community that are just like, this approach is not it. This approach is not it. Because I assumed a more military, like strategic, militaristic approach to this was going to be something that they can do. Cause like, and then like the echoes of apartheid that exist are scary to me too, because if basically Gaza is like the Texas and Israel is the United States, they have jurisdiction over what happens in Texas or in Gaza. So if, for example, there are buildings there. There are buildings in, excuse my terminology and lack thereof of like specific locations, and I'm doing more research so I can be on top of it all. But there are buildings that are red roofed and buildings that are not red roofed. So anybody who understands what apartheid is understands that those red roof buildings are indicative of a certain people living there. So if anybody wants to bomb anything, they know where not to do it because there's a red roof on it. Kind of like how like in the Bible, because people are bringing up this time in the Bible, and I think some of them kind of like misinterpreted it or misquoted a specific part, or maybe excuse me, sorry, a specific part of the Bible was the one that became more relevant in social media. But I remember there being a woman, I believe her name was Rahab, when two people who were from Abraham's army or group were trying to scout out the area of the town that they were going to attack. They almost got captured. They almost got caught. So this woman named Rahab hid them in her house and protected them and told the guards they weren't there, and they left. The guards left or whatever. And then the two people that she hid told her, "Thank you for protecting us and saving us. We are going to launch an attack on this place. So in order for us to know what building to not attack, we need you to wrap your house in a red cord or a red thread so we know to avoid your house when we come and attack." So I need us, I guess the whole premise of what I'm trying to say is I need us as Americans to really understand the echoes of our misunderstanding about how to communicate with tough issues like this. For example, and this is the only example. People use this example because it's the easiest one to relate to. When people are talking about groups of people being wronged and being attacked and being oppressed, let's go with that. When we talk about different groups of people being attacked and oppressed, we think about all the different horrible things that have happened to them. But one group of people, or at least a political group of people, will always take those victims and turn them into evil people and turn them into bad characters, or give you this story, or give you this word their information and word their conversation and word what they're trying to say so eloquently that you don't give the people who are oppressed the respect they deserve. For example, in the BLM movement, you always had those people that were just like, well, it's not right to burn down buildings, and because that's people's livelihood and that's people's, I would support it, but and for like somebody like me, it's just like, do you not understand what you're saying? Because a 5-year-old understands that, and I don't mean that to be insulting, but like a 5-year-old understands that it would be wrong to burn down a building that, somebody's grandparents own, that was trying to be a mom and pop store and be as successful as possible, and they invested all their money into it and they lost it because the community burned it down because they were upset, or a few people in the community, let's go with that, let's make it specific because that's what it's supposed to be, in the community burned it down because they were upset about what's happening to them as a whole in the community. And reducing, so we understand, now that we understand that that's wrong, whenever we're having a conversation about atrocities happening to people, do not bring up something like that. That's you trying to be like profound, and you trying to be like, to deflect the fact that somebody's trying to make you unpack the way you think about oppressed people. You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. And when you do that, you are proving to the very same people that have convinced you of this, that that's the atrocity that's going on, the burning down of buildings, of people's livelihoods, that wouldn't happen if people who were being oppressed weren't being oppressed continually, and the world ignoring that those people were being oppressed. And it's not justifying what they do, but when that happens, which anybody who has like, who can really like sit down and think this through, when that happens, it happens because of the oppression. And it's not right that it happens. It's not right at all. It's not okay that it happens at all. But saying that in a conversation deflects from the fact that we're talking about it's not right that these people are oppressed and they need to be relieved from their oppression. So reducing the fact that you don't want to support, in this example, anecdotal, the Black Lives Matter movement at that time, the BLM movement, not people not wanting to support it because they were told by a certain news station or news outlets or social media and their friends that supporting it basically means supporting violence and the destruction of property. That's not what that means. That's like saying, let me go back to it. That's you supporting the BLM movement does not mean you support that. It means you support that there are people who deserve to be treated equally and with respect that they deserve. And that's what you're fighting for. That's what you're marching for. And not physically fighting for, but that's what you are like investing your energy and investing your resources, investing your money into, to ensure that those people get respected and treated the way they deserve to be treated. And you would hope that people would also make the same decision as well, to do so. And that others would find out about it and help support you too. But there's this, and kind of what the whole subject of what I'm trying to say is, or what I'm trying to get at here, is that there's this whole miseducation about what's important in the conversation when we talk about people being attacked or people being oppressed. There will always be a group of people that will tell you a microaggression, a micro situation, or a small section in this horrible scope of things we're talking about here is what you need to be focused on here, so that you do not respect that this group of people is being oppressed over here. Um, there's a group. There's always going to be a political group that's going to make you or convince you to believe that a small group of people, a group of terrorists, are the people running an entire other group of people that are being oppressed, and you cannot respect the oppressed people, and you cannot have your heart go out to these oppressed people, because there's a small group of people doing wrong things in there, and we need you to pay attention to these small group of wrong things. And it's funny because they don't even say it that blatantly. They will keep reiterating to you the small stories, the small atrocities, the terrible atrocities that happen here, and those atrocities are not small to the people that it's affecting. It's not small to the people who have lost their livelihoods or lost their lives in the process. And by no means do I mean that that situation is small at all. But what I'm saying is, they will make you focus on something like that and reiterate that story and retell that story over and over again, to the point that that's the only thing you hear about the oppressed people whenever the oppressed people are brought up. But the people who are oppressing them are heroes for putting the people who caused this horrible atrocity, this small atrocity here, this micro atrocity here, they will make you focus, they will make you believe that this group over here that's oppressing them are the heroes for destroying these little villains over here, that are basically people feeling like they're retaliating for this. And I'm not saying this in the sense of the Palestinian and the Israeli struggle there, because what happened, that terrorist attack, is horrible, and we all know that there are terrorists that exist in every country, but we always hear about it in America, about in the Middle East. But these people who were born there, these Palestinian people who were born there, raised there, grew up there, had businesses there, had lives there. Because if we want to put it where it's at, the only time Americans understand something is when oppressed people are burning down buildings. That's the only time Americans really understand or pay attention to these oppressed people, and that they don't deserve the help that they need. Um, but this time, the people who are oppressed are not the ones burning down their own buildings. Um, it's a militaristic response from a group of people who are trying to rescue their own people, but are not taking the steps they need to in order to do so without destroying so many other innocent lives. Innocent lives are being lost. And I know the amount is about for the Israeli people, and I'm so sorry about that. Trying to enjoy a concert and something terrible like that happens, and you lose your life, you lose your family, and your family members are kidnapped. You don't know what's happening to them. I can't imagine what that's like. I can't imagine what that's like, and how heartbreaking that is, and how every time your heart beats in your chest, there are moments where you don't even feel it's there, because the pain and the heartache and the fear is guising your ability to feel your own heart beat in your chest, so that you feel empty inside in a way that's indescribable. And coming close to describing it doesn't do it the justice of the pain that you feel. So my heart goes out to those people who were attacked during that time. It truly does. Because no one deserves that. No one deserves that. My heart also goes out to the people who are being attacked. Because the response from the other side, the people who were attacked first initially, the response of their military is now to unalive people on the other side, indiscriminately, of whether or not they're part of the terrorist group or they're civilians. So now civilians are without homes because there's suspicion, or there was suspicion, that the terrorist group is now living amongst those people in a specific home, in a specific area, and it's being bombed indiscriminately. And of course, now if you think about it this way, when it comes to a hostage situation, there are levels to a hostage situation, and I don't know if it's described in like tactical maneuvers or even in like police efforts or whatever, but this is coming from like something I'm trying to be analytical about because I like to be analytical about things. Um, for example, here in America, we understand that there are situations where gunmen will go into schools and um, hold people hostage, especially in classrooms, um, or hurt people in classrooms, students and things like that. So, if we think about it this way, the people who are immediately in the classroom with the person who is the gunman are hostages. And any other student in the school building, and any other teachers and any other people in the building that are not in that room but are in the building are secondary hostages. So you have primary hostages, which are the people who are inside the room with the person who has a gun pointed at them or in the area and walking around with their guns. And you have secondary hostages, which are people who are living or who are inside the building but are not in the room. So, from what I understand, our responses here in America, when it comes to that, are to do whatever we can to get as many people out as safely as we can and to end the efforts or end what the gunman is trying to do. Stop what the gunman is trying to do. Mostly to detain and in some cases to unalive if necessary. So understanding that there are primary hostages and secondary hostages, you can understand that in a situation in Gaza where we have people who are primary hostages, which are the Israeli people from the incident before and other incidents that we do not know about. That's a terrible situation. That is terrible and horrible. But if those hostages are being held in places like, as for example, because it's similar, in a school, for example, in the location where all the war is happening, in Gaza, anywhere close or anywhere nearby, or West Bank or wherever it's at. Let's say, for example, the terrorists are holding hostages in a classroom in a school there in Gaza, and then you have people who are in the same building but are afraid to leave because they don't know where the terrorist is located, but they know there's a terrorist there. They know there's the terrorist group there. There's the person with the gun there, so they're afraid to leave. They don't know where to go. Those people are not being voluntary meat shields for the terrorist group. Those people are not supporting whoever is holding the people in that room at gunpoint. They are secondary hostages. Not primary hostages because they're not in the same room, but they're secondary hostages because they're in the same building and they don't know what's going to happen if they leave the building. It's like the people who try to leave that room don't know what's going to happen, but their assumption is they could be unalived by a weapon. And the assumption for the people who are secondary hostages that they could be unalived as well. So when we sit down and we think about this, let's make it the hospital situation. Because in the school, I guarantee there's also those locations where people are trying to find safety and comfort and food and clean water. Which if you saw the percentage, if you did some research on the percentage of water that's not clean in Gaza, and if any wells were destroyed, livable drinking water or safe drinking water, it being cut off to civilians is terrible. So as an effort to weed out the terrorists, I understand that's what they're trying to do, but in America here, we would frown upon and we would be up in arms if when rescue efforts were given to try to help students out of a school, get out of a school and protect them from the gunmen that's in there, people would really be extremely upset if somebody said that their child was being a meat shield for that gunman. So I need us to think the same. I need us to be analytical. I need us to use our critical thinking skills that we learned about in English class and in grade school to understand this concept about how it's similar. It's so similar. It's not even funny. And us understanding what school outings are like, because I don't want to say the word because my video might get flagged or whatever. But we understand what that's like here in America. So I need us to like open our eyes. I need us to like pay attention. I need us to really think about this in a way we can understand, because we can relate and we can understand that part. So us not being able to see that something terrible is happening to the group of people that are innocent there, and differentiate them between terrorists is the same colonial understanding that we have when it comes to racism. That we can't separate the difference between the group of people that are being oppressed and a group of people that make bad decisions while they are oppressed, um, from each other. And that small group of people that make bad decisions because they are oppressed, or the small group of people that are oppressed that make bad decisions, are not indicative or not the same, or not an example of what the entire group of people who are oppressed are like. And that's the part we got. That's the disconnect. That's the thing we got to fix. That's the thing we got to understand. That's the thing we got to break down. That's the thing we got to unpack. That's the thing we have to pay attention to. And that's the thing that we as Americans need to stop pretending like we don't understand. You understand this. You understand this very much so. The real issue is, and this is something that it may seem like I'm going on a red herring or going on a tangent, but bear with me. Anybody with some critical thinking skills that's ready to really unpack some stuff, is going to be able to go on this ride, on this train with me, and understand that it's not going to a bad place, and it's not being derailed, and it's not going to some venture that ends in a dead end, or doesn't make any sense. We have to understand that this is a cultural pattern being repeated, a pattern that's being repeated of our understanding of our history. And as my teacher in college re-educated me on, that history doesn't repeat itself, but patterns in history repeat themselves. So our misunderstanding about how to approach this particular subject comes from a misunderstanding or miseducation about what is important when all this is going down, when all this is happening. We have to understand what's important. There are innocent people's lives being lost on both sides, and innocent people's lives in danger on both sides. The innocent people on the side that's weaker does not deserve, they do not deserve to be uprooted out of their entire livelihoods and their lives and their place of living and their indigenousy, if that's a word, but bear with me, for the sake of it. Give me that grace to say that word. That them losing their entire livelihood for the sake of this war, to avenge a horrible atrocity, is not okay. It's not okay. You this is something that you are able to be in the middle ground about. If you want to be in the middle ground about it, this is something you can be in the middle ground about, but you can understand right from wrong. And that's something as Americans we truly need to grasp and fully understand. You can understand the difference between right and wrong. You need to. You can. And if you look at it, you can. If you ignore it because you don't want to be emotionally responsible for it, and this is what I was trying to get to earlier, in America for some reason, and honestly adults in general, because we're finally out of this phase in our life where we were, for some people, let's put it where it's at, property of their parents. Because as a child, of course, the parent is meant to protect you and keep you from dangerous things, and guide you in a way that you're able to live your life. But some people are guided in a way that they're almost led around on a leash, so to speak. when it comes to even mindsets and how they're developed and how they grow and how they understand things and how they look at the world. Um, so with that, as adults, it's kind of like, okay, now I'm free to think for myself. Um, but you're still gonna keep, if you're not careful, if you're not one of those people who was constantly unpacking the horrible things that were happening to you as a kid and how your life was being kind of like leashed around instead of kind of like guided like a shepherd to greener pastures, because the current grass that you were eating is now dirt. So in order for you to have the nutrients you need to survive, we can let me guide you over to this area that's greener pastures so that you can eat actual grass again and not just dirt. Um, and the people who were brought up in like mindsets where they didn't treat people that didn't like them with respect or equally, now they have to like, as they grow up, to train themselves. That's not okay. That's not okay. That's not okay. Treat people with respect. Everybody deserves respect. Treat people the way you want to be treated. The golden rule. Um, like to do that. Um, Now as an adult, that's something you have to make an effort to do, so that you can fully respect other humans in the capacity, because you have to go to work, you have to or own a business, and you may have to communicate with people who are different from you, and to be able to build lasting relationships and business practices that are well respected so that your business can flourish um, in this environment, you need to be able to have a conversation in a way that won't offend people in a way that you did it because you weren't respectful. There's a difference between, because people sometimes nowadays are just like, everyone's a snowflake, but usually the people who are saying people are snowflakes are the snowflakes. But I'm not gonna continue there. But um, people deserve respect, and there's a difference between you going out of your way to ensure that you, or just you being indifferent or not caring about the respect you give a person, and you accidentally misunderstanding something or misinterpreting something or not being educated about um, how you need to approach a conversation about something. And at that point, you have the responsibility to educate yourself um, about this new whatever that's happening now in history or in life or in your country, um, or group of people that are now here. It's your responsibility now to get as much research as you can and apologize along the way as you misinterpret or misunderstand, or and become more educated about how you treat this new group of people. But as adults, there's like, I finally don't have to wear this mask anymore that I had to wear to protect myself from my parents or whoever was in my life, so that I can grow up safely, um, with minimized abuse and mistreatment. Um, now I can now I now as I get older, if I don't unpack these things, the mask that you wore to protect yourself back then, when people brush up against it with um, newer groups of people, or respect that has been like, I want this respect from you as a person, but you're not giving it. Sometimes those adults see it as this mask that I'm wearing to protect myself as a kid or as a younger person. You're not respecting it. You're not respecting the mask that I had to wear in order to keep myself alive or to survive. And the thing is, you don't have to wear that mask anymore. You can let that mask go. You can put it down. You don't have to wear that anymore. You're in a place now where you're able to do for yourself, or have people in your life that care about you intentionally and seriously this time, and not like for the sake of, I have this responsibility to raise this person, but in the sense of, this person is important to me and I want to do life with them and I want to help them in their life as they help me in mine, in whatever facet that is. If I have resources, I help them. If the resource they have for me is just kindness, I'm okay with that. But if the resources I have for them is financial stability and a place to stay, um, or financial stability and lasting friendships, um, and just spending time with them. And if I care about this person enough that I don't mind that to go pick them up and hang out with them, um, that's the sacrifice I'm willing to make, because they're sacrificing their time with me, and that to me matters. That's the resources they're giving to me, and in turn, this is the resource I'm giving to them. So, when you have those people in your life that care about you, to help you grow into the best version of yourself, the version that God sees you as. Um, it's hard to, if you're still wearing that mask and haven't put it down yet, and haven't unpacked all those things from your past, to understand that you no longer have to live your life in survival mode, or with that mask you did when you were surviving. You're an adult now. You can unpack these things. You can think differently now. You don't have to think the way they thought in order to protect yourself from being attacked anymore. You can think differently now. It's safe now to do that. And that is honestly what one of the things that cripples understanding. One of the things that cripples people being able to relate to other people. One of the things that cripples um, us in this, and it's not our fault that we were raised in this colonial style mindset here in America, where we're taught to think a certain way about certain groups of people because of what we've learned in history about them and what our parents have raised us to believe about these people, despite what our history book is telling us happened to them. Let's ignore it because I know from my experience as your parent, this is how it is, or as a person that's close to you, or as a friend, or as your sibling, or as a relative, or as some random person on the street, that this is how it is, even though the history book said it was this way. Um, and that's why books being removed or earned or and I'm saying it that way so the video doesn't get flagged. um it's terrible because if you wanted to go back and do the research, you can't do it anymore. And even certain websites that people were able to glean information about touchy subjects about, it's geared more towards being vague instead of being specific about the history. And it's being because they can't afford to maintain the websites, because they're losing funding maybe, and those are accurate and websites that people get legit information from, that are being taken down or removed or whatever. That's why all that stuff is kind of like, because every effort that can be made to make sure that you maintain that mask and stay in survival mode so that you can't think for yourself, um, every effort that's being made to do that is being made to do that. Um, I know it's hard to unpack or to see or to understand that somebody might be trying to not allow me to be my best version of myself. But your best version of yourself allows you to be somebody who cares about other people, um, who cares about uh, somebody else's life, somebody else's livelihood, somebody else's family, somebody else's culture. Because for us to be a melting pot here in America, our lack of understanding for culture is scary. Um, and for me, I don't understand because everybody likes food. I love me some food. So like, to not want to know more about somebody else's culture or to be afraid of somebody else's culture, um, you miss out on food. You miss out on food. Food is good. You miss out on um, games. You miss out on dances. You miss out on festivities. You miss out on parades. You miss out on areas in your life and beautiful moments and memories in your life that could be made because you haven't done enough research on your own time to understand what somebody else's life looks like because you're afraid or you're too busy or life has made you feel like you're afraid or people have convinced you you're afraid or you should be afraid or that you should be too busy or that. And here's the part that's really intense. Sometimes as adults we're still not free from the mask that we had to wear because those people who made us wear that mask to protect ourselves from those people, um, those scary people. Sometimes for us it's our family members, sometimes for us it's our friends. But those scary people that made us wear a mask to protect ourselves when we come around, they still come around. They're still a part of our lives. They're still in our lives. So it feels dangerous to take that mask off. So we still wear it. Um, but we gotta for your sake, for your own sake of healing, and for your own sake of self-love and self-respect and respect for other humans, you owe it to yourself to put that mask away and to heal. You owe it to yourself to heal. You do. So that you can understand, so we can, for us to be one of the, as we coined it here, one of the greatest countries in the world, our ability to really embrace this melting pot is falling short of what it could be. For us to be so diverse, we seem so divided. And we're not divided because of our race. We're divided because of the way we look at it. Whenever somebody mentions somebody's culture or their background or their ethnicity is what it's supposed to be called. We say race. We're all the same human race, but ethnicity is the difference. And what our background is, what we grew up as, what our DNA is the difference. But those differences should bring us together. I celebrate being around groups of people that look different from me because I've grown up in a way where I have to take a look at my own self in order to understand how to approach people because they may see me differently. Um, and I say this, the phrase, and I'm unpacking a lot in this one video, in this one live, but I kind of, maybe it's all been on my mind. And it's kind of all coining together and all kind of melding together, kind of like a melting pot. This like, how's it going? Melting pot and the culture and understanding other people and how Americans could be doing this faster. Like this, we really need to. There's nothing wrong with noticing somebody's differences. Like the phrase "I don't see color" is the worst phrase I've heard ever. It sounds heartfelt. It sounds meaningful. It sounds like it's supposed to be something beautiful, but it's not. In doing so, you're saying the the part of somebody's life, the part of somebody's being, a part of them that makes them who they are, I am ignoring. That's not what it sounds like you're saying, but that's exactly what it is. A part of somebody that makes them who they are, I am ignoring. And I'm just going to treat them at this surface general level. But in doing so, it robs you of experiences that you could possibly have with groups of people because of their differences. Like for example, whenever I'm around somebody who speaks Spanish, who has that cultural background, that additional language, which I beautifully respect people who speak more than one language. I use this phrase whenever something happens, like, oh, you snooze, you lose. And in Spanish, it's the phrase is coined as camarón que se duerme si lo lleva la corriente. I hope I pronounced that correctly. But it literally means shrimp that sleeps gets swept away by the current. But this is culturally, as Americans, we would understand that as and Americans encompass people who speak Spanish as well. So yes, but for those of us who maybe speak one language, let's put it that way. For those of us who speak one language, we understand it as you snooze, you lose. We understand the phrase "you snooze, you lose." But whenever I say stuff like that, I could literally hear, especially if I'm just on the phone with somebody or just communicating with somebody with audio, I can hear them smile in the next phrases or the next words they speak. Or when I go to restaurants where people speak Chinese and I speak Chinese and I say ni hao, and I say xie xie. When I say hello, which means ni hao, and I say xie xie, which means thank you in Chinese whenever I get my food. And they say xie xie, and I say bu ke qi, and that means you're welcome in Chinese. It puts a smile on their face that I didn't normally see before when I walked in, or I wouldn't have been able to see if I didn't know that little bit about a language to be able to communicate. So in that, I didn't say that I don't see color. In that, I said I see it. It's beautiful, and I want to be able to have a beautiful moment with you because of it. So with that, I guess all I have to say about this entirety of this subject, of it all, is that us as Americans, we can't look at this as a black and white thing, and I don't mean that literally. I mean that in the phrase of one side versus another side. We can see that atrocities have occurred on both sides, but at least before you understand anything else, you need to understand this: that because of that atrocity, It does not give one side the right to uproot the other side's entire livelihood and destroy their lives and destroy the foundation of who they were. It doesn't give that right. Even even though, excuse me, in pursuit of the people who wronged you, it is not right to destroy innocent people along. That's what I mean when I say that. So peace and love on both sides, but my fellow Americans, I implore you, I implore you to think more than just one-dimensionally. Think in layers, please, please. You owe it to yourself as a human first and as an American second. You owe it to yourself to try to understand it in layers and not just one side versus the other. You can support people um, without supporting villains that do horrible things. You can support a group of people without supporting the terrorists that cause those things. Um, you can support a group of people, but be a little upset with how your people are approaching, um, or be upset with a group of people about how they're approaching um, saving their own people and protecting their own people. You can understand that. So I pray that you kind of anyone who listened took that with grace, and with I'm gonna do more research, but it was kind of on my chest, and I had to talk about it at least. But we can't think one dimensionally, guys. We have to be better than that. We have to be better than that. We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to our fellow Americans. We owe it to our fellow humans here on Earth, and our fellow people on Earth. We owe it to them as well to understand that there are layers to this rather than just it being one side versus the other. Um, and you can do so without being anti this or anti that. You can do so by being empathetic to people. You can do so by being thoughtful to people. At the end of the day, we're all people. We're all people. You can be thoughtful to people without choosing a side, without needing to choose a side. You can be thoughtful to people. And that's the whole purpose of it all. Being mindful about people and thoughtful and your heart going out and maybe giving support and resources to people. Because these are all people at the end of the day that are involved. This is not one organization versus a military and a country. This is not one terrorist organization versus a uh, Israeli people. It's not. There are civilians involved. There are civilians involved that a terrorist organization maybe live close quarters to. Organization using them as shields to protect themselves. Um, and the one side that's trying to save their own people, that's kind of bulldozing their way through everything, should at least provide support to the civilians that are innocent, to the civilians that are there, to the people that are there that are not terrorists. They deserve that. They deserve that. They deserve that help because you're uprooting their entire livelihood now. So where are they gonna go? We have to, as adults and as people, and not even as adults, because children can be empowered to do this too. But as people, we have to understand this. We have to unpack it all. We can't just lock it behind some wall of I emotionally can't handle that right now because I'm just trying to survive and make it to the next day. We can't do that because it's in our face. I'm not just in our face because it's happening around us. We have to be thoughtful, and if it was, it still matters because there are people involved. So don't hide behind I can't emotionally handle that right now. Those who emotionally can't are doing what they know to take care of those things. But the average person who may not need medicine to take care of their emotions or to help balance that out, you can extend that grace. You can extend those thoughts. You can extend those prayers for those people. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like the video. Share it with somebody. I know it's long. I know it's a lot, but when this video is over, there's this magical button called a gear at the top right of the video, or at the bottom right. If you're watching on like a big, on a monitor on YouTube or something on your laptop, you can adjust the speed of the video so that you can watch it faster. But I hope it really helps bring some things to light and some understanding to people who may not really grasp the severity of all the things that are happening here. And to bring a little more closure to something you may be worried about, or maybe bring some education, or maybe bring some tips on how you can bring empathy to the things you care about in the situation. To be mindful and thoughtful about both groups, both people, on both sides. Thank you.